Hello and welcome to Birth as We Know It. I am your podcast host, Kiona Nessenbaum. I have experienced birth as a doula, a student midwife, and as a mother of 3 amazing children with my husband and high school sweetheart by my side. After attending over 130 births, including my own, I've realized that each birth experience is truly unique. So make sure you subscribe and join me every week as we are guided through many different birth experiences through the lens of the storyteller. Please be aware that some of the stories can be triggering to hear, so feel free to pause, take a breath, and come back and listen whenever you're ready. With that said, let's prep ourselves to dive deep and get detailed about what really happens in the birth space. As a reminder, this podcast is intended for educational purposes only and has no intention of giving or replacing any medical advice. All advice that is given on the podcast is from the personal experiences of the storytellers. All medical or health-related questions should be directed to your licensed provider. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Birth as We Know It podcast. And if this is your first time tuning in, welcome. Today, I'm super excited to have my first partner interview with a special someone who is my brother-in-law. His name is Sam. So, Sam, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let's just start the podcast off by you telling us a little bit about yourself and who's in your family.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Well, my name's Sam. I'm married to Monae. I have, 2 older sisters, one younger brother. 2 of them live here. The other, does not. I have parents in Texas and Arizona. Monae and I have been dating for 6 years, 5 prior to us getting married. So we're in, our first year of marriage. And it, I love her to death, and it's been a blast. And I am, a new father to Soren, which is just so cool. It's been something for sure.
Yeah, and we'll definitely dive into that for sure. But I also just love how you said that you and Monae have been dating for 6 years, because even though you're married, you're still dating. So
yeah, and it still feels that way. We talk about it often. We just can't believe the time has flown by as quickly as it has, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So we're 6 years strong right now. Feels like we're still just people who just freshly love each other, met each other, and we're just going through life together. It's great.
Oh, I love that. Yay. I'm happy to hear that from, my sister's husband, of course, because that's what I want for her, is someone that just loves her for all of who she is. So I love that. Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's dive in a little bit to, the whole pregnancy, labor, and birth thing. So had you ever seen or attended a birth prior to the birth of Soren?
Never attended. I have seen births on, recording TV, health class, in school, stuff like that. So always from, very much from the perspective of an observer, a stranger,
right.
A young person who has no idea, has no interest or idea of what's going on in that video.
Right.
So seeing Monae deliver was quite the treat. Yeah, first time in person.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, and that actually puts it a lot into perspective, because that is sometimes people's only or first exposure to birth is like health class at school, and especially as a dude, you're probably like, I don't want to stare at this baby on the screen coming out of this woman's vagina, so I'm just going to turn my head because I'm not interested.
It's it's true. It's just like, why? Maybe it was a type of like psychological birth control for young people, right? But I was just like, I couldn't have. I could have cared less, but it was pretty down there. So tuning out at school for sure.
Yeah. Just going through the requirements of health class, checking all the boxes.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So if any of the listeners have listened to Monae's previous episodes, part 2, by the time this recording has come out, part 2 has launched, which is Monae speaking on her birth story. But so if the listeners did listen to those 2 episodes, which is episode 17 and episode 20, you would know that both Monae and Sam were actively trying to conceive Soren. So Sam, how was that process for you? The whole trying to actually have a baby?
I mean, it was easier than what a lot of people experience, right? I mean, for instance, our good friends had been trying for years and years to have a baby, and they just had so many struggles. And I think, from what I remember, Monae and I were starting to feel like we're ready. We're ready to put down roots. We're pretty solid as a couple. We know where we are and where we want to go. And so we just said, all right, well, let's try. Let's see, let's see where this goes. Let's see if we can have a kid. And we did, and it happened pretty quickly.
Yeah. How were you surprised that it happened so quickly? Were you expecting it to take longer?
Yeah, I was expecting it to take longer. I don't know. For some reason in my head, I was just like, I don't do it. Maybe I shoot blanks. That's just the thought I had.
Right.
So I thought maybe it would take a good while. But it didn't. It was a surprise to learn it happened. As soon as it did, it was a pleasure to learn that she was pregnant when we did, and maybe we can go into that.
Yeah, let's dive right in.
It happened super. Yeah. Okay. So, gosh, we were on our Scotland trip. It was our late honeymoon, because we're young and poor and we can't afford to go on honeymoon right after a big wedding reception. So
yeah,
it's like we had the wedding reception. We needed to save some money. So we saved. Then we went to Scotland. And it's like a weekend to Scotland. We're traveling around. We're having fun. We're drinking. We're in the hot tubs. We're in the spas. Doing all the normal things that someone who's not expecting do.
Right.
and then she takes a pregnancy test, and yeah, she's pregnant, and we were both in shock and sort of disbelief, and so we had to verify it, validate the test results. Yeah, and yeah, it was a real thing, and we were just both so happy about it.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. But I would also love to hear your perspective of what was going through your mind when she asked you to pee on the pregnancy test.
Yeah, I mean, so the first thing that was going through my mind is how, I don't want to say argue, but Monae and I, we discuss everything, right?
Right.
So it's like, do I want this to be a discussion, or do I just want to, go pee on the pregnancy stick because it's easier? So I was like, okay. So I'll
pick
just
your
go
battles,
do it.
right?
I was picking my battle, although I did question it. My knee jerk response was, no, you go pee, you go pee on it.
Yeah.
Just because it was such a weird question.
Right.
I never thought I'd be asked to pee on a pregnancy test stick. But I did, I did. And it was pretty easy.
Right. Did you read instructions?
I did. I was and I had to come back out and ask Monae a few things. And
yeah,
I went back in the restroom and peed on the stick, and we were waiting, and then, yeah, the results came, and I was negative. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was funny. It was, and we're on our honeymoon, right? So we're just, our minds are, so at ease, right? There's no stress whatsoever. We're both, just down for whatever. And when my negative, when the validation came through, yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's so hilarious. That is such a Monet thing to do. By the way, I would
I
have
know.
never ever thought of that process of like, oh, it says I'm pregnant and I think that this is false positive. So I'm going to make my husband, who I know is impossibly pregnant, like impossible to be pregnant,
Yeah.
sick.
Oh gosh.
Um,
She just wanted me to be involved to some extent. She's like, all right, you pee on it,
yeah.
Yeah, she really cracks me up.
Yeah. I mean, her reasoning for it made sense, because if it was like
Totally.
a
Totally.
positive, like imagine what your feelings would be if it said you were pregnant. Like if the stick
Yeah.
said
Yeah. What
positive,
a
you'd be like,
piece of
what the hell?
crap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where did we get this stupid thing?
Yeah.
I, we got it from a little hole in the wall in
Yeah.
Edinburgh, I think.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool though. And I mean,
yeah.
also, it's super awesome that you found out on your honeymoon because, it's just like you said, your minds were at ease and you guys were just so full of love and just loving each other even more because that time was specific for, you know, bonding
Us.
and
Yeah.
yeah, just embracing the
Yeah.
union you guys made. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It made it that much special.
mhm.
It was great timing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Good memory.
that's awesome. And so at what point, like did you right away, as soon as the pregnancy test said positive, were you like, oh, we're having a baby? And did it stay that way in your mind? Or did you sometimes forget that Monae was pregnant?
I'll answer that in two ways. So, whenever Monet said the pregnancy test came positive, I was as doubtful as she was, honestly, in the
Mhm.
moment. I was like, wait, hold on. Let me double check this, right? Let me read what the box says
Mhm.
and let me take a look at the stick. And so, we go through that and I read, I'm like, wow, it does say that. Like, and so that's why I was kind of like, open to her suggesting that prove it out, right? Pee on the
Right.
second stick that they provide. And so after that moment, it was like, wow, okay, we have to change up our honeymoon a little bit. We were just in the hot tub, actually, like, yeah, we were just drinking. So that's got to stop. My mind immediately went to, okay, so how long has she been pregnant and how much longer do we need to wait before we can tell family?
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how soon did you tell your family members? Because we know we waited forever. At least it felt like forever.
Yeah. Yeah. So Monet told me that one day that she told her dad. She was like, oh,
Hmm.
by the way, I told my dad. I was like, what? And
Yeah.
so I was like, fine, I'll call my dad and tell him. So I called my dad and and told him that we were pregnant and
Hmm.
asked him to keep it also hush hush. So it was, I waited a little bit longer than Monet because I
Hmm.
probably contacted or called my dad a few days to a week after I learned that Monet had shared the news. And then we were, 'cause I know she was just dying to share. Both of us were. And so, yeah, that was a good feeling. And it was even better when we could share with the rest of the family. I mean, and you want to be careful with sharing news. You don't know how the pregnancy is going to go, and
Right.
I've heard plenty of stories where it doesn't always go so well or as planned, and it ends up being very difficult for the family, for
Hmm.
everyone involved. So we were being super careful about it.
Yeah. And since you guys were like in hot tubs and drinking in Scotland, did you have any concerns on whether or not the baby was okay?
No, I didn't. Yeah, I guess that's I didn't. The reality is how many women go through living life, somewhat normally, socially drinking, doing whatever it is they're going to do until they find out that they're pregnant. Who knows how far along, how far along they are. I didn't really have any concerns. It happens. I think it's pretty common. I don't know how common. I have no data, and I'm not an expert, but my guesstimate is that it's pretty common. I wasn't concerned, and I think I had heard from my mom like many times. Oh, if y'all enjoy Scotland, and if you happen to if you happen to be pregnant, a couple glasses of wine isn't going to hurt your baby.
Yeah.
That must mean she drank a lot when she was pregnant with us. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Monae was a lot more concerned than I was. I was ready to just go with the flow. From that point, I was like, no, it'll all be fine now.
Yeah.
It's meant to be. You'll be healthy. He'll be healthy. That the baby will be healthy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you didn't know he was a boy yet, so.
No.
Yeah. So how was that? So obviously. Well, actually, before we jump to that, let's talk about, did you see any changes in Monae after you found out that she was pregnant? Like before she started showing, obviously, like were there any big hormonal shifts or like, symptoms that you were aware of?
That's a good question. Only in so thinking about like shortly after learning, not during not 8 months down the road.
Right.
When she's ready to get the baby out of her. But like shortly after learning, I don't think so, other than her being, super careful. Like she even canceled her tattoo, right? Her Scotland tattoo, because she wanted to be that careful about getting, preventing ink poisoning while she was pregnant. So that stuff started immediately. I was like, okay, well, we're done, drinking socially, because, I'm not really going to drink if she's pregnant. And so behavioral changes like that. Yes, recognized, saw immediately. Hormones, it's really hard to say. You know how Monae is, and and I mean that in the best possible way. But it was hard for me to identify what was just might have been a little bit of pregnancy hormone Monae or regular Monae, but that's not to say any of it was bad.
Yeah. I mean, Monae is just Monae. It's so hard to describe because she's a beautiful person. She's extremely kind, but she's also very blunt and straightforward sometimes.
Yeah. She's very direct. She's strong-willed.
That's a good word.
She's
direct.
Independent. Once she makes up her mind, that's it. I mean, unless I choose to have a discussion and in an attempt to sway her, right?
Right.
And I 100% trust her judgment, right? She's incredibly smart, and we typically see eye to eye on a lot. So,
yeah, I think that's awesome. So that's really cool. And so, going a little bit further down the line, you guys, I believe, are in Arizona at your mom's place when you guys get the test results back.
Yeah. And that was just as exciting, if not more. Because in the moment we're on honeymoon, it's like, wow, we kind of, for lack of better words, we kind of overshadowed the excitement of finding out in Scotland because of our doubtfulness, right? But when we knew we were pregnant, the test results come in, we're just relaxing on, our next holiday. I forgot how much later that was, but, and found out, the baby's a boy. Oh gosh, that was, I think we were both almost in just happy tears. So elated. Couldn't wait to share with my mom, and our families in the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's so cool. And, I was not surprised at all that you guys were having a boy because Monae always gets what she wants in my mind.
She wanted a boy.
Yeah, she wanted a boy so bad. And then you guys ended up having a boy. And I just think that's awesome. I think that's really
she
cool.
willed it. She willed it into existence, right?
Right.
But I know she was like super, super happy. Kind of I told you so. I told you how this is gonna how this is how it was going to be sort of thing.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's so cool because that's totally Monet, like, see, I told you this is going to be, there's no surprises on my end over here. Like,
Yeah, it's part of my plan.
yeah.
Therefore, it is, right?
Yeah. At any point throughout her pregnancy, did you reach out to any family or friends for like what to expect when becoming a parent?
To an extent, yeah, because I don't want to start inviting all the advice that other parents freely and want to give, like expecting new parents. So I was like, I wanted to avoid that stuff with all due respect to everyone, everyone who that would be, right? However, I was meeting with my siblings. We were meeting like once a week, every Friday, every now and then, and that's really just my older sisters. My younger brother, he checked out of that a while ago,
yeah.
But and both of them have children. The oldest has 3 daughters. The second oldest has 2 children. And so they both have, experiences and their own stories. And so I would, occasionally ask questions, as they would come up. Right.
Right.
And I can't remember what those were. It's like, how long did this, how long did this hard part take, and how long did y'all have to suffer through that? That's what I was thinking about.
How long did you have to suffer?
Well, I just wanted to be so clear and realistic on, it was important for me to understand how my life was going to change immediately. So I was, asking, those types of questions.
Yeah. I think that that's a really good way to think about it is, obviously your life is going to change, but how do you prepare for that?
Right.
When I was talking to Kumar about this a little bit, my husband, he was saying that like when I was pregnant, he didn't really think much about the birth as much. It was more about how he was going to parent. Would you say that that was similar for you, or were you also focused on the birth?
No, I don't think it's similar. Well, it's so hard to say because and this is why like eyewitness testimonies aren't very accurate, by the way, because you're picking parts of the past that you want to tell, right? So I absolutely had those thoughts, right? What kind of parent do I want to be? I always thought if I do, I loved my dad. He gave us a great childhood. And I typically was operating under, if I can be as good a father as my dad was to me, then we'll be good. And Soren will be good.
Yeah.
I was more focused on during the entire pregnancy on Monae, thinking about, the delivery day, thinking about after delivery, and sort of the more real or concrete changes that were coming around the bend.
Yeah. Yeah. And so with being focused on, Monae and her pregnancy at that point, did you have any concerns or like any say or conversations necessarily about like where she was choosing to birth? Like, were you part of that conversation of where?
That's a good question. I would like to think I was part of the conversation, but I don't know. I would certainly ask questions.
Yeah.
And we would talk, Lauren, my oldest sister, she almost died during her first childbirth. And, if it weren't for the medical equipment in the room, she would have died. And so I always kind of, since then, I've erred on the side of, there's a reason, we have good health coverage or medical insurance. There's a reason that they have these, machines to make sure you're healthy and safe and the baby's healthy and safe. That's all I have to say. That's sort of my thought on it, but that I always followed up or preface that with, you do whatever is going to be comfortable and physically and mentally for you. Right. It's trying to be more than the observer the entire time, which is hard because, I feel helpless, but yeah, I think that's kind of how I was looking at it or thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good point is, you had heard about your sister's experience. And then, of course, like your first thought, or maybe not necessarily your first thought, but an inkling of your wife potentially wanting to look at out of hospital options, knowing that I'm her sister. And that's like what I'm all about too.
Yeah.
It's like, there's a little hesitation there, which is totally valid. Like, absolutely. I was also told by my mother-in-law when I had my home birth with Cairo that, because, you know, my mother-in-law, she's from Nepal and she lived in a village in Nepal growing up throughout her life. And she said, if I was in the village, I would have died. Like, you would have been done for, Kiona.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. I mean, it's right. I mean, people. It was a very common. Again, not an expert. I should probably stop saying it was common, right? But yes, women died frequently during childbirth, right? It's a huge, serious thing.
Yeah.
In my perspective of selfishly caring for Monet and her health and safety, and Soren's, you know, I was always just, you know, put these please be safe sort of messages,
Right.
you know, in her ear.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's good, as a partner should.
Right. I always felt it's important for me as a partner to offer the other a different perspective. Right.
Mhm.
I mean, life would be totally different if we were just always in agreement on everything. Right.
Right.
Oh yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. You know, just agree. You know, it's, you know, you gotta question and challenge some things. Not that that was what I was doing
No, yeah.
with the pregnancy, but yeah, you get what
I get what you're
hope you get
saying.
where I'm
Yeah,
coming.
that
Okay.
makes total sense. 100%. Did you and Monet do any preparation outside of the childbirth education classes for labor and birth? Or I guess I should ask more specifically for you. Like, did you do any research on your own to prepare yourself for labor?
I was reading some, you know, some dude, you know, air quotes dude books, you know, dude dad books. You know, you're going to be a father soon. You know, here's how to support your wife. Here's what to expect. Here's some projects to plan for and do with your new kid. Stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I had been. I didn't do anything more than that.
Mm-hmm.
I knew we were going to be taking classes, and we took a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of them were the best time spent, in my opinion. So yeah, not. I did some light reading, not super in depth. You know, I think I had a decent idea of what to expect, since, you know, I have so many nieces, older sisters with children, and I was always around for, you know, kind of their upbringing and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good. And, you know, having nieces and children in your life before you had your own child was probably helpful.
Yeah, so helpful, so helpful. You know, I lived in Boston for a summer for 3 months and took care of my well, she wasn't newborn, she was 4 months at the time, and that was straight out of college, and so I was maybe 19 or 20, and went to take care of a 4-month-old full time. That was really hard.
Yeah.
That was very hard.
Your first exposure to what parenting could potentially be like. Yeah.
Yes, it scarred me, but I'm doing a lot better now.
That's good. That's good. That's good. When or how were you feeling leading up to like the labor? Like, not necessarily when labor started, but like as her pregnancy was getting further and further along, and you were getting closer to her expected due date and going after her due date. How was that for you?
Oh gosh, it was like there were ebbs and flows of it, right? So whenever she first started to show, that was like the waves of emotion coming in, right? It's we're excited, you know, we're seeing it happen,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're seeing pregnancy happen. And we know there's, you know, a little human being growing inside her, and she's getting, you know, and we can see it. It's a real concrete thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then after that, it's like, oh, okay, now we're in like the stretches of, oh geez, like this is he's growing, yep, he's still there, and you know, Monet is just, you know, all I'm seeing is Monet uncomfortable a lot of the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's just, and that was a large section or portion of the pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wow, okay, like how many more weeks do we have? You know, how far along are you? And you know,
Right.
yeah, and then you know, the last trimester, I guess, yeah, that's how they're broken up, right?
Mm-hmm.
The last trimester, another super quick, you know, wave of emotions. I feel like the whole time, you know, he could be here at any moment sort of feeling. I'm trying to wrap up projects at work. I'm trying to plan, for, the drive to the hospital. We're trying to plan for his arrival. Monae's nesting, but she's also super uncomfortable. Our life was already changing at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was another huge, moment of change, good, all types of feelings, mostly good.
Yeah. Some rough, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Nothing is ever, 100% pretty and easy for anyone. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's good. So at what moment did you realize that Monae was in labor?
Yeah. Okay. So we were past her due date, and then it was like, oh my God, like when we started taking bets, right? It's like I lost. I thought the Friday before he actually came, he was going to be here,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of just like gave up like a couple days before she actually went into labor. I was thinking, okay, I'm done stressing about it. I got to get some sleep.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be here soon. We don't know when. And I think it was probably like that night her mucus plug comes out or whatever. And and where I wake up to her talking to the hospital, on the phone. And then I'm like, whoa, what's going on? Are you in labor? She's like, no, I don't think so. But there was just a lot of blood. I think it was my mucus plug. So she was calling the hospital several times.
Mm-hmm.
And then once she kind of realized that it was early labor, then I was like up and out of bed and started to prepare, immediately helping her cope with contractions.
Yeah, because you had a realization, that early labor was happening when she also had the realization after calling the hospital and saying her mucus plug was out. So,
right, yeah. I mean, it's so. I was trying to take like an hour before this meeting to like recall like what happened because it was such a blur, right? I mean, we were up all day. I actually got some sleep, but Monae got no sleep. Right, we typically go to bed at midnight, and sometime between midnight and when I like got up in the early morning, she had been in early labor. She was having contractions. She just wasn't 100% sure they were contractions. Neither was I.
mm-hmm.
And then I think once we were like, we think they're contractions, then we call you, or I forgot what happened, but you come over and help. And so, yeah, that's when things got super, super quick, very blurry for me.
Yeah.
Hopefully I can still, recount some things though.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and dive into the labor a little bit because I did come to your house because Monae didn't get much sleep, if any at all. We tried the TENS unit and, we were just kind of helping her cope. And then at one point, if any of the listeners want the big details on that, they can listen to the previous episode to get the details on that one, episode 20. And then we drove. I would love to hear your perspective of the drive to the hospital because it was just over an hour of getting from your place to the hospital.
Oh gosh, yeah. It had to have been like an hour and a half. It was terrible. It was a nightmare. It was the scenario that I was trying so hard to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
So it was stressful. It was very tough. When we were still laboring at home, I was trying to help with, the flashcards, right? But really what was going on in my mind was, when do we need to go to the hospital?
Mm-hmm.
so because, we're hearing for the last 4 months, when her contractions are, if I were you guys, this is our midwifery team. If I were y'all, I would start coming in at 7 or 6 minutes apart, right? But she never, that either happened while I was sleeping and she didn't really know they were contractions, but we were already at 5 minutes apart for each contraction. So I was confused about the whole thing. I was like, when the heck do we go? We're finally, you basically said it's time to go, right? And I think we were in agreement. It's like, yeah, we should get to the hospital because it's at 45 minutes, no traffic, right? And so when we're on the road, We get Monet loaded into the car. Everything's, my go bags are ready. I think I have everything. Then we're on the road. And this is when Monet was like the meanest to me. It's hard to, she's not being mean, right? She's just like irritable and in pain.
Right.
And so this was the hardest part of the day for me, and for her. I think the car ride made it so much harder on her contractions. And I was trying to drive fast, but very carefully, right? And smoothly, like no sharp turns, because it, for all the reasons that you want to get to a hospital for, right? Driving fast, trying to drive smoothly, but in reality, it's like every slight turn, she's like, "Oh God, stop! Stop driving! So, stop! Why are you turning so sharply? Stop putting on the brakes!" It was the whole time. I'm like, "I'm sorry, just breathe, just breathe." So we're getting closer to Bellevue during this time. And 2 lanes of 405 are closed. It's like the nightmare scenario. Where my wife is pregnant. I don't know how far along she is. She's definitely having contractions 5 minutes apart. We're in back-to-back stopped traffic on the highway. We have to find a way to get off on the side street. And, I'm wondering, are we going to do this on the side of the road? So I'm like scouting out places as we're driving on the side street to the hospital. So, oh, okay, that could be a good place because people can't see. And then I'm like, I think I can tell if I call 911, I can give directions to the cop, like how to get there or how to get to where we are. And so I was just like going through that. I was, keeping notes like that in my head the entire time while trying to like figure out what the fastest route to the hospital was. I think I called you. I was like, "Hey, what's your navigation say?"
Yeah. And we were on the same route. So I was saying the same thing.
Yes. Yeah. We were on the same route. And all the while, Monet is getting more and more uncomfortable. She's starting to be very audible with her, pain and coping. And there's only so many ways she can cope while sitting in a car. Right. It's getting worse and worse for her. And I'm sure I shaved off like several years of my life. I think I grew like several gray hairs in my beard somewhere during that time. But we finally made it to the hospital after it was under 2 hours. It was like an hour and a half or so. Very scary and not ideal, but we made it to the hospital in time.
Yeah, which was good. And I feel like, because when I heard her, when you called me for that brief moment when she was contracting in the car, I also had similar thoughts. I was like, I've caught a couple babies before. Like, what would I tell Monet for her to trust me in this moment if she was on the side of the road,
Good, yes.
And I was like, oh God.
Yeah, and it definitely did have me at more of a it did ease my mind knowing that you were behind us, like following us. It was like, okay, well, at least Keona's here, she's following us. I won't be totally alone in this.
Because I swear, Sam, if I saw any indication that a blinker was happening and you were going to the side of the road, I would have been cutting so many people off. And I would have just been like, oh no, it's go time,
Yeah. All of those same thoughts were going in my head. Would I have to direct traffic while you get Monet, comfortable? I was thinking those things. I'm so glad we made it.
Yeah, me too. So let's dive in a little bit more into like the actual birth experience for you. How was it for you once we got to the hospital and you were kind of like, we were there? And
oh my gosh. So it was such a relief to be there in the hospital. We lucked out on a wheelchair because I noticed throughout the next several days there were no wheelchairs by where we parked. So I'm so grateful for that wheelchair, whoever left it there. The lady at the front desk was taking forever, and that was the most one of the most annoying parts for me. As Monet's in pain. She needs to get to a room where she can be supported. And this lady's, just like in La La Land. I'm sure she's doing her job, right? Checking us in, doing paperwork. But I'm an impatient person already. But I was getting very annoyed very quickly. Trying my best to be nice.
Yeah,
I think I
you
was.
were. You did good. I didn't sense any irritability. So,
Okay. So once we finally got through the doors to service and support, right,
mhm.
where all the rooms are. Of course, there's a pit stop room where there's some. I don't even,
Yeah, you got to do the
know way more
triage
about it.
room. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. The triage room. Yeah. So, we make it to the triage room, and that's a little better. It's like at least we have someone here checking her out, telling us, we came at the right time,
Mhm.
which was also a relief to hear. Yeah. Once we were in the delivery room, my mind was at ease. I could, focus on helping Monet
Yeah.
until it was, go time.
Yeah. And so, how was it for you watching Monet once everything was settled? Because I do feel like the check in process took forever, primarily because of the whole IV situation. But after the IV situation, went through and everything like that, we finally had the room to ourselves for a bit. And so, how was that? Like, was it any different for you to like be settled and like let her go through her process? And
Not really. I mean, it was very similar to helping her go through labor pains at home. I was, we had gone through the methods that she felt would be the most helpful, and we even had them on flashcards, right? And I brought those flashcards with me, but she wasn't really. I think when she was in labor, she wasn't. She didn't really feel like doing many of those things with me. Uh, that's
yeah.
that's how I felt. I
Mm.
don't know how it really was. I felt like I was ready to help, do these methods with her, and we did do a little. We did a
Mhm.
few, but I think she just wanted to do so much of it on her own. She
Mhm.
didn't want to like be thinking about, okay, I need to get in this position or this and this. She just wanted to deal with it in her own way.
Mhm.
Totally fine by me. But that's how I felt in the hospital or in the delivery room too. It's like I'm still going to hover until she tells me to go away, right, or
Yeah.
yells at me, right. So, and I think I was. It's again, we were like on zero. We're running on fumes at this point.
Right.
I'm trying to help in any way I can, but feeling more or less useless for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I felt that way as well, to a certain extent,
Okay.
because, Monet was very good at coping on her own. And of course, I would also hover and then I would ask her, does this feel okay? No. Okay. How about this? No. All right. No. Okay. And then,
Yeah, I was so grateful for that. I'm so
yeah.
happy you were there.
Yeah. I was super happy to be there because it was truly amazing. So amazing to just see Monet do her thing. Um, I did have, I remember that funny moment where she was so nice to you at one point, and I had mentioned, like, wow, you're so nice, Monet, because I expected her to be just a little bit more irritable during labor, but she was like, I think you had like touched her hand or something, and she was like, just not right now, babe, please.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa.
I know. Yeah, I was in shock too because you
Yeah.
should have heard some of the things she was saying to me in the car. You know,
Yeah.
so I was like, "Oh, whoa, okay, yeah." And I was like, that even had me thinking. You can yell at me, right? I mean, you don't need to keep. She was trying to she was keeping it together, right?
Hmm.
She was mentally conquering her pain. I felt.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. So let's go ahead and bounce forward to the actual moments near the end of her labor and right before the
Yeah.
birth. So, things started to take a turn right after her water broke. So, how was that moment for you?
Oh yeah, so I think I think y'all's dad was in the room at the time of her water breaking, and we both hear Monet's yelling from the bathroom, my water broke, so
Hmm.
um, I think that happened,
It did, yeah.
and then we were like, whoa, okay, like it's go time now, and I remember like kind of hovering behind the midwife who was asking Monet questions. It's like, are you ready to push? And Monet's like, yeah. I think Monet told me she doesn't remember being asked that or saying that, but all of a sudden she's they're like positioning her on the delivery bed. They're getting they're just sort of setting her up to deliver,
Hmm.
and then my adrenaline is I think hitting, right. I mean, it's I know I have a plan to catch the baby, so I'm just trying to figure out the whole time, okay, where does Monae want me to? Should I be like beside her holding her hand? If so, like, when do I break away? Because I'm catching the baby, right?
Right.
So I'm glad your dad was there to like stay next to her while it was a lot. There was a lot going on. Like I had to either like look at Monae, but she was in so much pain. She was, I mean this in the best way possible. She was making faces I've never seen before, right? So I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't like stare at her the entire time, right?
Right.
And so I was like, okay, so what else should or could I do? And so I was just standing behind the midwife at that point, like just kind of watching, trying to understand, because they were like, they were telling her to push. The pushing was beginning and starting to happen. I was trying to understand like where the gains were coming from, because I couldn't see anything happening. Or I was like, what are what they're celebrating? What are they celebrating? Is he coming out?
Yeah.
Everyone's like, great job. And I'm like, what happened? I don't see anything happening.
I don't see him yet. What's going on?
Yeah. And I feel like that was a huge chunk of the delivery. And then whenever I could see movement, I'm like, oh, well, it was just like, whoa. It got really, I don't want to say weird, but just surreal.
Yeah.
It was at that time, what existed from my perspective was Soren, coming out into the world. Monet's faces, her pushing, her pain didn't really exist to me at the time. I was just like so entranced with Soren making his way out, and just waiting for the word from the midwife to, get up here and catch him, which I wish I would have been like trained on a little bit. But that's kind of what it was like up until he did come out.
Yeah. I feel like it's hard to train anybody on catching a baby before you catch a baby.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because even as, a student, I would watch all the time, watch all the time. But my first catch was similar to yours, where it was a four-handed catch. So like the midwife and your hands are down there at the same time, and then you're bringing baby up. Like you just have to experience it to do it.
Yeah. I mean, she was telling me like to like put my hands in like positions and like catch this part of his head and be ready to catch his legs. And like, she was showing me, but none of that stuck. I was just like, yeah. And I was like, just still watching.
Yeah. Yeah.
Confident that I wasn't going to drop him. It's just the hard part was not knowing how he was going to come out and, how I was going to catch him. But, it worked out. And it was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And your experience with catching him was also interesting because he had a nuchal cord, right? So his umbilical cord was wrapped around him.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was interesting because, he was coming out, but his neck could only go so far, but his body was still coming. And so he kind of was like sitting, and his feet were still in her vagina while they were like undoing.
Were they? I did not retain any of that. I remember just sort of like I don't even know what I was really looking at. Of course I caught my son, right? But I didn't even immediately recognize that he was strangled by his own umbilical cord until the midwife said something. And then I was like, oh my gosh, he is. Right.
Yeah. You're like, oh, okay.
And everyone's trying to move so fast. Right. And I'm just like trying not to get in their way while holding Soren. He's super slippery. I don't know why my dad said this, but my dad told me, just remember, kids, babies aren't slippery when they come out.
They're not slippery?
They're not slippery when they come out. And I'm like, Dad, why did you tell me that? That was like so far from the truth. It's like, he's almost 70 now. His memory's not what it once was. And so he was slippery. He was sliding all over my hands the entire time I was holding him. And I had to maneuver him. I felt like I didn't throw him. It felt like I threw him onto Monet's chest.
I think Monae probably felt that too.
Yeah, she's like, oh,
Yeah.
big baby on her.
Yeah. From an outsider's perspective, looking in on that, I thought it was so awesome. It was so awesome to see you catch Soren, and then just the smile on your face afterwards. And after you went and washed your hands and came back, you know, you were just like beaming.
Yeah, yeah. So after I was able to put Soren on her chest, I didn't want to leave, but the midwife was like, "Go wash your hands now." So I was like, oh, "Okay, I got to go wash my hands." And as I was doing that, I heard his first sounds while I was at the sink. So I was like, "Oh man, I'm missing it."
Yeah.
So I wanted to rush back over, or I was just trying to go so fast. I was probably moving super slowly though.
Were you counting for 20 seconds at the sink?
No, not at all. I was definitely not following hand washing protocols. I was just doing the good old quick rub and scrub and dry and run back over there. I don't even think I dried them. They were just. I used soap and water, and then I went back over.
Yeah, I remember you having a paper towel, so you subconsciously grabbed one on your way back.
Right.
So yeah.
All right, there you go.
Yeah, and then you had a son.
Yeah, and then he was here. Monae looked, so happy, and she initially looked relieved, right? Soren's on her chest. I know this is the part she was really looking forward to. Skin to skin, the first breastfeed, y'all's dad cutting the cord, but it wasn't really over, right? She still had to. There was still a placenta.
Mm-hmm.
There was some stitching.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were some other complications where she had to wait there a little while while the midwife got a doctor or a specialist to come and check out some other things that were happening. I don't know if there were complications, but I know she was uncomfortable for a lot longer than she wanted to be. Which sucked seeing, but I knew like the heart, like it's going to be over so quickly. Mm-hmm. She got the hardest part out of the way. Just hanging in here a few more minutes.
Yeah. And speaking of the placenta, you actually got to take a look at it. Do you remember that?
I do. Yeah, that was it was graphic, so I remember it well.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on it?
My thoughts were I was not expecting the midwife to like get up, like to like stretch it out and open it with her fingers and hands, and I was like, oh, not it's the first time I'm seeing it, right? Not just a placenta, my wife's placenta, like being stretched out and shown, right in front of my face. I'm just like, okay, that's nice. It's not what's for breakfast in the morning. You can get out of here.
Yeah, you can go ahead and toss that. Yeah.
I mean, that was just my reaction to it. I was just like, oh God, I want to see my baby, not the placenta. I know the midwife was super intrigued by it though. Yeah,
I love placentas, so I definitely would have been that midwife being like, look at this.
Yeah. I mean, I remember I was getting lightheaded right before I was going to catch Soren. So I was like trying to wake myself up. I was rubbing my arms. I was getting, never thought that I couldn't do it. I just realized like I need to breathe because I'm getting a little lightheaded. And then that placenta, even after the delivery, was like, okay, I'm done with all this.
Yeah. Thanks anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember there was maybe the nurse saw that in you. They were, oh, no. Never mind. I'm thinking of an IV part. Because I think one of the nurses asked if you needed a chair at some point. But I don't think it was during the birth. I think it was during an IV.
Yeah, that was during her labor. That was during her laboring, her contractions, and they were, gosh, poor Monae. We knew that the IV complications would happen, even though they were, telling us different things. It's just, it wasn't that bad, but it was still frustrating because I know Monae hates it, just absolutely hates it.
Yeah, that's true. So let's go ahead and bounce into postpartum for a little bit. How were your first few days postpartum as a family?
They were good. The first couple days in the hospital, because Soren arrived at 11:43, so we stayed that day plus another full day, and then departed the next morning. So we were there at the hospital for 2.5 days, and those were great because Soren's just super complacent, tired, hungry, but not screaming like he's doing to me today. Right. And we were ready to get out of the hospital by the end, right? We were like, okay, let's go home. But I was just glad that we were there. We had a place to rest because we were, extremely tired. We were so fatigued. I was happy to see Monae, her color coming back, her vitality coming back. She was starting, she loved, Soren being on top of her, all the skin to skin. That was nice. We finally, we're checked out. We go home, and my mom had been staying with us. She got here 2 days before his original due date. So she had been there a week, and she was only staying a couple days after, we came back. So it was great having her just basically cook and clean for us while we were, locked upstairs pretty much, or locked in our bedroom with Soren the whole time, which was also great. I think the first 5 days, again, this is no sleep brain, but it's like the first 5 days, Soren, it was just, so easy, such a pleasure to be in the house, just us two and Soren, us three. All together.
Yeah.
It was very nice. Yeah.
Nice. And you have had lots of support postpartum from what I'm aware of.
We have.
Your family has been cycling out visiting days.
Yeah. So I knew my mom wanted to come. She wanted to come and help. She always comes and helps her grandbabies, when they're just coming into the world. I was shocked that my dad wanted to come and that his partner, Karen, wanted to come as well. So we were super grateful for the amount of support. We were not planning on that much support. But that's just the way it happened. It was very nice to have them. My dad, he tries to help where he can. He's not
right.
He just wanted to see the baby. He's not really helping around the house. Sorry, Dad, but yeah, lots of support. So grateful that we have good family to come and help. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. And I know that I was super sad and still am a little sad that I haven't been around as much because Cairo got a cold after Soren was born. Yeah. So we've been avoiding you guys. But we're going to be seeing you guys soon.
Yeah, we're here. We're here still. I mean, it's like right when we think we have a schedule or a rhythm, he changes it up. It's like he's responding to things differently. Now we're trying to figure out what different cues are for things, and it's just now we're in a mode of not sleeping very well at night, if at all. And
yeah. And how old is Soren now? He's almost 4 weeks old.
He's almost 4 weeks old. Yeah. So he'll be 4 weeks. Whoa, he is 4 weeks old today, actually.
Today?
So he'll be 4 weeks old tonight. Yeah.
Jeez.
Yep. Tonight at 11:43.
Wow. 4 weeks old. Goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. So it would be great to see y'all, and we're definitely getting down all right, here's when we can fix food, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But please do come by.
Yeah, we will for sure. That's awesome. That makes me happy. It sounds like everything is going exactly as it should.
I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, of course, parenting is I I don't know how to say this because parenting is awesome, but parenting is hard. Yeah. And I think you've heard that before. Parenting is very hard from the get-go. And this little human is just going to rock your world for the rest of your life because you are forever a dad,
Yep. Oh, yeah. And I'm waiting until he can he's a year, right? And we can actually go do some things. I don't know if that's realistic or not. I'm just can we skip to that part?
Don't skip to that part. Enjoy it. Because then when you get to that part, it's so much like
it's
relieving. You're like, oh, we got through that newborn stage.
yeah. And it's funny you say that. I mean, there are definitely those moments where it's like he's screaming it feels like he's screaming at me because I don't have anything to sate him.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't have the boobs.
I don't. And so it's like I'm holding him and he's just screaming and screaming at me with no mechanism to soothe other than my voice and touch. And I can handle him screaming at me, but still it's just, it's not, I don't think it's easy for anyone,
It's not the funnest thing.
Not the funnest thing. So that's, still getting used to that.
Yeah. So would you say that's probably the most challenging part of parenting so far?
Yeah. That, and we're both running on fumes. So apart from me I'm getting better at soothing Soren, or he is getting better at me. He is getting more used to me. Right. So I think in terms of soothing him off the boob, I think I'm better than Monae at it. I was able to soothe him to sleep last night, and Monae wasn't. So I was like, I did that.
Yeah.
So there's little victories for me, right?
Yeah.
The other part is like Monae and I are just we're just lacking sleep, and we just got to remember to give each other a break and not be so. Not that we are being hard on each other. It's just we can see each other on the edge, right? It's like we're both tired.
It's hard to hold the snaps back.
Yes. It's
hard.
So it's that. Yeah, it's that right now. But it's all good. It's all good things.
It's a temporary moment.
Yes.
Yeah. You guys will get through it, and it's going to be awesome. And
well, thanks.
Yeah. And, I think that, well, since you are a partner, I usually ask birthing people this, but like, how is your mental state now? Because postpartum depression happens with partners as well. Not saying you are experiencing that, but like, have you noticed any struggles or changes in your postpartum mental health?
No. I mean, my knee-jerk reaction was, oh no, I'm fine. I don't know if I'm fine, compared to my pre-father self, right? But I don't feel any of the symptoms of postpartum from a father standpoint. I feel very critical right now and integral to Monae's and Soren's lives. And I'm off work. And so that's, this time just to spend with the family, it's something that I'm thankful for. I know the reality is a lot of people don't get this benefit or this, luxury. And I'm super grateful to be off at home, just spending time with Monae and Soren.
Yeah. How much time do you have off left?
Assuming I'm approved for all 12 weeks, that means I'll go back start of September. So I still have July and August,
nice.
Ideally at home. Yeah, so it's great. We're already kind of planning, a few like day trips out. Let's take Soren out. Figure out our car strategy, right? So we have a couple day trips planned. We're going, we're trying to get him into a routine. Here's his daytime routine, morning, lunch, night, and then here's your evening, and then here's the sleep routine. So we're getting things down. It's just, I think it'll take, it'll take all the time that I'm off.
If not more.
So for sure. Yeah. I mean, just again, I guess babies change all the time, right? But we will be in a state. I'm hoping, Monae and I will certainly be in a stable mental place, right, by the end of my leave, and hopefully we can afford childcare, whatever form of childcare looks like.
Yeah, childcare is a whole other ball game.
Oh, it's so expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and wrap it up with just a few more questions. What is one piece of advice you would give to partners of pregnant people as they prepare for labor and birth?
Gosh, I hadn't thought of that. I mean, I would say be ready to put aside your ego, help the pregnant person in whatever way you can help, whatever they need, be ready to help them, and also be ready to be an observer. There's some things that I couldn't help with, right? And I had to get used to that. I'm the type who I want to provide an answer, to a problem that Monae tells me, even though she's not looking for an answer sometimes. And so that was an adjustment, and it was an important one. And I guess that's what I would say.
Yeah, that's good. I think that is good advice and a good perspective of putting your ego behind you and to the side, because it's something that you'll never understand or be able to experience on your own.
Yeah.
So you just got to trust what's being said about how someone feels and work with them and not against them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you could describe birth, like the birth experience in one word for you, what would it be?
Wow, that's a hard one. Fruitful.
Fruitful. Nice. I think that's good.
Yeah, we planted that seed, we grew that fruit, and now we're here to reap what we sowed. So it's been fruitful.
Nice. I like that. That's great. Is there any resources that you used throughout the labor that you would want to share? Like you had mentioned, any like books or anything like that?
I don't want to recommend the book that I was reading because it was just
You're like, it was just not.
I wasn't into it. It was like
Mhm.
this. It was recommended to me by a friend, and it was kind of I felt like it was an outdated view on how to be a good male partner to your pregnant female, to a pregnant female. And so I'll leave it at that. I don't, won't go into specifics. I would recommend not shying away from all the educational programs the hospitals recommend or provide. So I know I said some of those were a waste of time, and some of them were, but some of them were actually really helpful. They still, put Monae and I at ease. So yeah, I would say leverage the medical, because I didn't do any searching on my own. The medical resources were helpful for me.
Nice. Okay, that's good. Good for listeners to know. Well, Sam, thank you so much. I'm super excited that you were willing to put your perspective on the podcast with me, and I love hearing it, and I think it's awesome.
Yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity. Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. Now I'm just going to talk about this all the time.
I'm really looking forward to hearing Monae's version. I have not heard him, so it'll be really cool to go back and listen to. And thanks again for having me.
Yeah, of course. Hello again, everyone, and thank you so much for listening to the first partner perspective on the Birth as We Know It podcast. I am honored to say that first partner perspective was my brother-in-law, Sam. Sam, thank you so much for loving my sister for all of who she is. I loved interviewing you, and I'm so excited and happy to watch you and my sister flourish as parents. Next week, I'm really excited that I actually had the opportunity to interview my bonus mom, my stepmom, my mother, Mirla. Mirla is amazing, and you may remember me mentioning her from my first birth with Kavina in episode 1. I was really looking forward to interviewing her because I was super excited to get the details and finally hear the birth stories of my younger siblings. And let's just say her second birth was super awesome because there was a surprise, as my little sister was actually supposed to be a boy. So tune in next week to hear the details on that. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode today. Don't hesitate to share this with your family and friends. If you liked this episode, feel free to leave a review so my podcast can pop up for others and they can see and listen to it as well. If you have a birth story or experience you would want to share on the Birth As We Know It podcast, head over to KionaNessenbaum.com and fill out the guest request form. That is KionaNessenbaum.com. I look forward to connecting with you again soon. Bye for now.